right, thank you very much, Francis Form, for that background. With us to discuss matters arising from the new welfare package for police personnel, let's welcome our regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, Felix Ogbaldo. Is a lawyer and also retired Assistant Inspector General. AIG, pleasure to welcome you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you.
Well, all right. Joining us via Zoom from Ilorin is Comrade Issa Aremu. Comrade Issa Aremu is the Director General, Michael Imodu National Institute for Labour Studies, Ilorin in Kwara State. You're welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning, Nigerians, and good morning, Africans.
Well, we also have via Zoom Okechukwu Nwangoma, Executive Director, Rule of Law and Accountability Advocacy Center, RULAC. He is a police reform expert and advocate of rule of law. We're glad to have you join us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. My pleasure to be here.
All right, gentlemen, once again, a pleasure to have you three guests with us on the program. The headline of the new welfare package for the police has to do with the 20% increase in salary, but we do know that there are a number of elements that have also been touched on in terms of the welfare package: death benefits, uninsured benefits, burial benefits, and a lot more, duty tour allowances that have also been increased. Beginning with AIG, Felix Ogbaldo, is this a new dawn in terms of welfare for the Nigerian police?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I wouldn't say it's 100% new dawn for the welfare of the police. But all the same, we need to commend the government, but I'm not highly commending them. There's a difference between commending and highly commended. This clamor for the increase of salary for police officers has been on for a long, long while. And no government has ever tried to do anything about it. So we're happy that at least something has been done this year in this regime. A journey of 2,000 miles commences with one step. So at least we've started. The 20% is really nothing to celebrate yet, but all the same, something to make some improvement, a difference. So to a very large extent, I think it's a very welcome development. But I'm looking forward to when they'll move forward again to probably top it up some other time. They may have had their reason to peg it at 20%. I was thinking that a minimum of 50% would have been a lot better. Minimum of 50% would have been a lot better. But like I said, let us start from somewhere. That's why I want to commend the government for the very little they've done. The very little they've done. Anybody who says we won't commend the government, I think that will not be too fair. At least they've done something. Let's accept that we've started the race to improve the welfare and the well-being of the police officers.
All right, let's come to you, Okechukwu Nwangoma. You are a police reform expert. Does this new package make sense to you? If it does, to what extent?
Thank you very much. By the nature of the work we do, we interact a lot with police officers. And when this type of information is out there, we try to feel the pulse, of police officers. Knowing what it has been, I do not think that this is an exciting news. Reason being that this is not the first time under this administration that we have had announcements of increase in salaries of police officers, but it never really happened. It was just increase on paper. But even if this one is going to work, by what margin has it improved? Welfare is very key to the effectiveness and integrity of policing. If police officers are not well remunerated and well taken care of, it's going to rub off on their conduct and performance. We don't think that this is adequate enough. In fact, we were expecting 100% increase. But the question is, The 20%, is it even salaries? It is not even salaries. This is what they call peculiar allowance, which includes things like inconvenience allowance, hazard allowance. It's not even the salary that was increased. These are just allowances. So we need to correct that error. There is no increase in salary.
Well, that's the typical challenge with some Zoom connections where the bandwidth is low.
We think that they deserve better than this.
Okay, okay, Chukwu, thank you very much. Let's join Comrade Issa Aremo to get his own opening thoughts on this issue.
Hello, are you hearing me now? Okay, once again, let me say good morning to all Nigerians through my very good friends, Kirin and Sadolo. I think I would like to join Mr. Felix Ogbadu, who's also a MNI like me, to commend the federal government for this gesture to address what I've always been saying, the crisis of compensation within the ranks of the police force. I've always been saying this, that policemen and women, they are workers in uniform. And if you're addressing the welfare, the wages of workers in all sectors of the economy, I think Nigerian police, men and women, also deserve appropriate compensation. In fact, in another climate, once a labor man, I'm always a labor man, Kingsley. In other countries, even the policemen and women, they were allowed to unionize. The difference is that they will not go on strike. But anything that happens to the workers who are unionized always affect them. But here, they are not unionized, but it's important to address their concern. There's no way we can address the perennial crisis of insecurity without addressing the men and women who are constitutionally mandated to secure us. Only policemen and women that are secure can also secure all of us. And the key to security of any worker, including policemen, is income security. So I think I'm quite excited that we now have this move of 20% wage increase, whether you call it wage increase or allowance increase. What is clear is that it translates into additional income for the policemen and women. And also very significant is about 1.2 billion naira that's also been released for uninsured benefits. And I think additional 1.2 billion for a couple of allowances, naira. So I would like to say that this is a good beginning, but I also agree with Mr. Felix that this should just be seen as a step towards comprehensive wage review, appropriate compensation for the police. And I want to say this because the commendation should not just go to the president. The president has done very well. I mean, in his broadcasts, you forgot after the EndSARS protest, or at the height of the EndSARS protest, the president deliberately mandated the Salaries, Income and Wages Commission, to address the pay of the police. So I want to say that in addition to appreciating the president, we should also commend the Salaries, Income and Wages Commission, which has moved into action under the chairmanship of Itaipu to look at what is possible, within the contents of the limited national resources. And I'm happy that we are seeing today that if there's a will, there will be the way out. If you also recollect, Kingsley, that it was President Mohamed Buhari that also set up the Police Trust Fund. That also shows that the president is very sensitive to the plight of the police. Now, what I would just suggest is that the Police Trust Fund, which is a transition fund, should now complement the effort of the Federal Executive Council. And I'm happy the police minister for police affairs, Megeri Dingyadi, has also on 2 or 3 occasions referred to the importance of police trust fund. I don't know how much fund has been built up now, but that trust fund is supposed to last for about 6 years. And it's supposed to, a percentage of company taxes supposed to be paid there, and the whole idea is that beyond salaries for the police, which is very, very important, you must also train them, you must equip them, and that's what the trust fund is meant for. So in a nutshell, this is my brief remark. What I'm trying to say is that you cannot resolve the crisis we're having over the issue of insecurity unless you address the welfare of the police. And this 20% wage increase is one step towards that direction.
All right, thank you. Let's return to Barrister Felix Obuadu. So you retired as an Assistant Inspector General of Police. So that means you rose to you rose to a very high position before retirement. So you understand the intricacies of police affairs. When it comes to the issue of allowances, of course, before now, the police also had allowances, hazard allowance for those who do night duties and other inconveniences. But what we've had over the years has been that these allowances don't even get to the junior officers, who actually carry out such duties, that their seniors don't release the monies to them. If that is true, what do you think should be done this time around, to ensure that these allowances, because of course it's not salary, these allowances this time around will get to the real men who do the job?
Well, thank you very much. Let me bring some clarification. There was a document that was sent to me, which I went through, in relation to the topic we're discussing today. That's the 20% salary increase. And the areas that were affected, or that are affected with that increase are as follows. The areas that were identified. 1, the salary. 2, duty to allowance, which Kingsley made reference to, that's DTA. 3, rent allowance. You recall that there are no more barracks. Even the ones we have are not in terrible state, dilapidated. They need to be demolished and new ones built. Then, burial expenses for officers who died in the course of the line of duty. Then insurance allowance for the dead in service. Then tax waiver for junior officers. Tax waiver for junior officers. Then repairs of all damaged police infrastructures during the course of the mayhems we had, one problem or the other. Then replacement of all those damaged beyond repairs. Those that were destroyed beyond repairs or burnt completely during maybe the End SARS protest or deliberate or revenge attacks on police by victims of maltreatment, inhuman treatment, and all of that. So these are the areas. Now back to your question. You see, in those good old days, when I was in 4th year in Alagbon, that was between 1980 and 86. Let me zero down on the DTA, due to allowance. Detectives that were assigned to go on investigation were paid what we call the DTA, due to allowance. What does that do? What does that do for the operatives? It takes care of your hotel accommodation and your feeding, your welfare, while you're on that mission. And in our time, we had a lot of allocations for all of these things. If you applied for like 5 days, you tell your boss, I'll be away for 5 days. They give you 7 days DTA. And what's the reason for that? To make sure that none of the parties entices you or even makes you to, sway. So that was it. Then, with the officers, we used to go to Tinubu Square, where I had Nigeria Airways office, with warrants. You go there, you tell them, of course the route is indicated in the warrant. They issue your etiquette. The junior officers go by road. We officers will go by air. And the junior officers who were traveling by road at that time, they had roadworthy vehicles. Because many, many years back, every police command in this nation had a works department and a workshop where they repaired and serviced and maintained all our vehicles, with stores that were stocked with spare parts, with all caliber of workers, technicians, those that will work on the engines, mechanics and all of that, those that work on tires, electrical problems, whatever the problem is in the vehicle. So the vehicles were roadworthy. And when they are traveling for such assignments, if you are leaving Abuja, for instance, for maybe Edo State or even beyond, your tank will be filled up here. And all those work departments, they had their own fuel dumps. The vehicle's tank will be filled with fuel. When you get to Lokoja, you go to the state headquarters. They also fill your tank for you, merely just sign for them. When you get to Benin, you do same. And so there was no stress on those who were doing it. But as of today, because these funds are no longer available, if you go to report, complaint to the police, you report a criminal matter to be investigated, they'll be asking for mobilization fee because no funds are anymore made available for them.
But why is this so?
That's what the problem is from the government. Inadequate funding of the police force. While some, I don't want to be very specific, but I've said this over time, many, many times. While some people are being paid so much for doing next to nothing, we are not prioritizing security. Because if you don't empower them, don't expect them to give you desired results. It's not easy. And when they resort to violence, corruption, extortion, and all of that, it's because yesterday there was an editorial on the Vanguard on this topic we're discussing today. And they said a constable earns 41,496 naira or thereabout. 20% of that is 1/5 of that sum. If add that to the 41,000 plus, it comes to less than 50,000. What difference does that really make? We need to pay these officers living wage. But it's not exclusive to police alone, police officers alone. Everybody deserves a living wage. But like I always say, because we have to prioritize security, that's why there should be hiked up.
You know, but AIG Felix Ogbuad, I want
Yes.
to just stay with you so that we can interrogate further.
Yes.
Taking advantage of your service in the years that you were just talking about. Let's ask ourselves this question. Why would it now take the Federal Executive Council to handle matters that are ordinarily administrative, or if not administrative, that should not be escalated beyond the level of, say, what is now known as the Police Service Commission or the Ministry of Police Affairs? You're talking about simple allowances. The same thing you're talking about, DTA, it's the same thing for a number of organizations.
Yes, that's right.
Whether private or public. You couldn't be sending your correspondence on assignment and you say, go empty-handed. You have to have your DTA, and oftentimes it's benchmarked against the inflationary rate. It is not today you'll say, for instance, you will give a DTA of 5,000 naira to your correspondent when you know that hotel accommodation is 10,000. Do you expect him to go and stay in a brothel? So what happened even to the management of the police force over the years, that some of these little things could not have been taken care of, now requiring the attention of the Federal Executive Council?
Well, it's common knowledge that a lot of government departments, agencies, they always told you what is approved for them, not all of it is released. What the government approves for them in the budget, not all of it gets to them. And that's a major problem. Then secondly, not all of the requests made for funding are approved. So if these are the challenges, making progress becomes extremely difficult. Very, very difficult. Look, I've always talked about the National Assembly. The other time during the rainy season, the roof was leaking. And you can imagine how many billions were spent to renovate that structure. Now, many more billions will be spent again for a leaking roof, for that kind of structure. Go around this nation, and see the state of police stations. Very sorry sight. Huge embarrassment. And when you travel along the road, you see police officers on duty. I just came up from Delta State by road. Some of the officers I saw were never, I said, I hope these are not armed robbers. They are dressed in different forms of uniforms. So by even tying this Islamic scarf on their heads and all of that. Because what used to have in those days, the police used to provide uniform for all the officers. You go to their stores, they issue all of these things. But now, you have to buy them. Back to the same issue of gross underfunding. My appeal is that the police should get the acts right. They've always done that in the past. Like I said, it's the inadequacy of funding for the police. While some organizations are overfunded, the police is grossly underfunded. I keep on saying that we must prioritize security, because in the absence of security, when security thrives, no form of human endeavor takes place. So there should be no comparison of what the police is getting with some other sectors of the economy, other public workers. They're not the same. These are people that work 24/7, 7 days in a week, 12 months in a year, world without end. Public holidays inclusive, weekends inclusive. You NTA, for instance, you are on weekends, not so. You are on public holidays, not so. But some of the workers don't go to work weekends. They don't go to work on public holidays. But security, all of these days, security must be provided. That is why they must be treated preferentially.
Well, Okechukwu Angoma, in your opening contribution, you made it clear, that you are not satisfied with the 20% increase in allowances, and you have also now listened to DIG Waldo, who has also made some points with respect to police management, what it used to be and what it is at the moment. In your view, how should police be managed? What are those, because you interact with police according to you, what are those findings? Do you feel areas that should be touched to ensure that the police is properly managed in Nigeria? Okechukwu Angoma, did he?
Yeah, there seems to be a freeze. I couldn't hear you clearly.
Okay, now I was talking about adequate police management. Earlier on, you made mention the fact that you are not satisfied with the 20% increase in allowances of police, because of course you said your responsibility is part of having interactions with the police, and you have a better understanding of their affairs, their welfare, and what have you. My question now is, how best do you think the police could be managed with respect to the nature of their responsibility?
Well, unfortunately, I couldn't clearly hear what Jerry was saying because of I think the network is not working well from my end. But let me make the point very clearly that the work of the police is a very important work, very risky work, and very sensitive work. Radical improvements in welfare of police officers is very important as a tool to fight corruption, boost morale, and humanize the police. The average policeman, the least police officer earns less than 50,000 in this economy. And a lot of them don't live in the barracks. They pay rents, they travel from distances, they have families to cater to their needs. what they're paid is not enough. And most of the times you hear that the excuses that some of the officers give for indulging in corrupt practices is because of poor pay. Whereas poor pay does not justify corrupt practices, but it is a factor critical to, inducing bad conduct. Now, I also know that in spite of the poor pay, there's also widespread complaint about officers not even being paid fully what they are entitled at the end of every month. There is an ongoing complaint, about officers who are complaining about their salaries being reduced. And the reason the police trust fund was set up was to provide additional funding window, since the federal government has over the years been unable to adequately fund the police. But what has happened to the police trust fund? You hear about complaints, allegations and counter-allegations among the operators of the trust fund about mismanagement of funds. And as you know, the ICPC is currently investigating allegations of mismanagement. Just 2 years after the trust fund came into force. And for me, I think that that this is very important, to address the issue of corruption and management of police resources. The resources, the funds made available to the police are not enough even to solve the needs of the force headquarters. And that is why it hardly trickles down. The same for welfare. And unless this happens, we endanger the lives of Nigerians, because when police officers are not paid well, they live in frustration, they live in anger, and these are people who carry arms. So this is a threat to the safety and security of Nigerians. What has been approved for
well, we again, that's the bandwidth issue with Okechukwu there. But we'll get back to him later on. Just to bring in our comrade Isaremo, I think that it's important to clarify this. It is not all police officers that earn 50,000 or less in a month. Let's so that it doesn't become like the argument we have over the minimum wage. When you say, can 30,000 naira take a worker by home, take care of all needs and so on and so forth, that would be the lowest of the low. In the federal service, for instance, there's no grade level 1 is there on the scale, but the salary scale would begin with employment on grade level 2. So it is not all police officers that are on 50,000 pay. Of course, the higher you go, the bigger the package, but that size, of course, remains quite small, as Felix Obadu, AIG, has indicated to us in this conversation. But Comrade Isaremo, I still would like us to interrogate how we got to this stage. Because, I mean, typical of us Nigerians, in another 4 or 5 years, if you were to get the Federal Executive Council to say, look into the welfare of police officers one more time because of inflationary pressure or other incidents in the macroeconomic environment, Nigerians will say, but they did that increment for them the other day. What is happening? And that's why I'm asking this question, because when you look at some of the items that have been touched on in terms of this new welfare package, whether it's DTA, burial allowance, digital allowance, where tax relief is good because that's a federal responsibility. These are items that ordinarily you will find under the recurrent expenditure. And in the Nigerian economy, we have been grappling with a huge burden of recurrent expenditure. Why was it difficult for the police to also, in the management in this case, add their own voice to say, look, considering the primacy of protection of life and property, which is the duty of the police, we need to up our various allowances in matters that the ordinary should have taken up on their own, but they seemed, if you like, that the management, the commission, or the Ministry of Police Affairs would appear not to have done this. And that's why I'm asking the question again, why would it require the intervention of the Federal Executive Council for this to happen?
Yeah, well, Kingsley, I think you said it all, and I'm not sure whether we need to belabor this point that all the key actors that are supposed to motivate and enhance the welfare of the rank and file of the police, if you ask me, for a long time, they have not been on duty. And this is not the time for us to engage in blame game. I agree with Mr. Felix that we have legacy problem of poor funding, and it became even worse under the military. Deliberately, the military regime deliberately underdeveloped Nigerian police force for obvious reason, because police was meant to maintain internal security, and those who look for shortcut to power, they always see police also as a threat. So deliberately, police had been underfunded, just like other sectors of the economy. But it's now the time for us to also accept some responsibilities. I agree with you. I mean, you don't need Federal Executive Council to talk of duty to allowance of 6% increase. Even the tax exemption, for the lowest paid constable too, I think it's also part of this new circular that they will be exempted for taxation, just like Nigerian Labour Congress pushed the case for minimum wage earners, that they need to be exempted for taxation. But I also agree with you that you don't need high-profile executive council to approve that. But what you cannot deny is that the president has taken up this challenge, and he has said that, wait, we must break the chains. You need to increase the police pay by this 20%, at least the rank and file. Of course, a couple of intervention funds have also put in place 1.2 billion. But what I want us to address from your question is that it's now time for police command to sit up, and make sure they manage the affairs of the police very well. Don't also forget that the entire police force of Nigeria, the staff strength is just about, less than 400,000. I think about 370,000 workforce. And the President Buhari, has shown commitment to increase the number of police, to about 280, with additional 280,000. If you look at police per capita, it's one of the lowest in the world. 200 million people to be protected by less than 400,000, poorly paid, poorly remunerated police force. I think we've been playing with fire, and you can see a lot of fires everywhere. Now, but even that directive hasn't been managed by the police force, police command. You know that Police Service Commission had to take the IG to court, or is it vice versa? Things that ought to have been resolved, simple recruitment. They couldn't even agree within themselves. And I'm happy, Mr. Gochuku, you also pointed out, and I think this is a time for us to have full disclosure of what's going on with the Police Trust Fund. The president has shown commitment that you need sustainable funding beyond the budgetary allocation. And you also know, Kingsley, between you and me, Kieran, the Nigerian budget, this is the highest so far. I don't know about, it's going to be passed today, about 17 trillion naira. If you do so per capita, we are still poorly, it's one of the lowest funded countries in the world, So even with the best of effort, the money that will come from the budget will be so low for the police, for other sectors of the economy. But President Buhari also signed Police Trust Fund. What has happened to that fund? And from the report, from what we've heard from Gochuku here, I've been told that EFCC or ICPC is already investigating a fund that is effectively, it has not even taken off. So I think what we need to do in the life is to do self-critical analysis and let all the police officers from IG and co know that their primary mandate is to motivate and encourage, and promote welfare of their rank and file. And they are the one who must put up the thinking cap. They are a very good department, and I think there are able men and women who are in the police to find a way that on a sustainable basis, we should be having programs and packages that will consistently be improving the welfare of the police without this dramatized, high profile. I mean, you don't need NSAS protest before we know that police men and women need to be properly motivated. So what I'm saying here is that I think it's time that the ball has to pass back to the Police Service Commission, the police high command at all levels. And then that comes to the last point I thought I should raise, that if the federal police is undergoing this crisis of compensation of management, I was just now wondering, the states who are very excited to set up all sorts of quasi-police organization, you know their names better than me, and you pay them peanuts. If the federal cannot pay, I think we have to know that to run police system, whether at the federal state level, you need adequate and sustainable funding. And I hope they're also learning from this process. If we get it through to go to have state police, if care is not taken, you may be decentralizing the same poorly paid police, you know, if you don't have appropriate funding for them, for the police at all level. But all I want to say here is that we don't need Federal Reserve Council to approve what should be routine. And I agree also with Mr. Felix. I mean, the lowest paid police is just about 51,000 naira. If you ask me, the minimum pay for the police should not be less than 100,000 naira in this economy. You know, and it's not just even for the police. Kingsley, let me end up on this note. Nigeria cannot get out of the economic crisis we have unless you have well-paid, motivated workforce. If you pay police very well, you pay workers, civil servants very well, they are not going to taking the money to Dubai to go and watch Expo. They will spend the money here to buy basic things, pay their rent, buy food, and that's also good for the economy. It's smart economics, you know, apart from the fact that they are economically secured. In the case of police, they will also try to secure us. So I want to say in summary that we must now charge police trust fund, you know, to make sure it fulfills the mandate for which it was set up for. We must have disclosure, full disclosure. How much have they realized? What have they spent the money on training, on rebuilding of the barracks, or providing vehicles? You know, I mean, all of us know what it takes to have police coverage in our respective organization. You need to be the one to provide cars for them, you buy fuel for the vehicle. I mean, you can't have adequate policing with this poorly, you know, resourced police force.
Right, thank you. Let's return to the studio. IG Felix Obwaltu, you've listened to the last speaker on some of the issues you know, that he raised. I Kingsley posed a very good question as to why should it take the Federal Reserve Council to, of course, give allowances to the police. Now, we have Police Services Commission. We have the Ministry of Police Affairs. We have Police Trust Fund. What should be the responsibilities of these this structure? Because I was worried like the fact that, you know, Ministry of Police Affairs was a creation of a few years ago. It was not there in the past. And believe me, a ministry, of course, also should be run with funds. Such funds should have even gone to police management in the first place. So why should we have Ministry of Police Affairs? We have a Police Services Commission. And at a point in time, they had the Police Service Commission had issues with the police management, you know, with respect to recruitment of staff for the police. So are we not, you know, modeling up some of these managerial, you know, arrangements? You know, because if you have Police Service Commission, Ministry of Police Affairs, yet these two entities could not even effect new allowances for the police, and now you took the Federal Reserve Council to do that. So what should be their primary responsibility? Should they be there in the first place? Shouldn't the funds used to run those entities be, you know, put into police management?
Well, thank you very much. That's a very pertinent question we've just raised now. The issue is that, and that is gospel truth, over time, the three agencies have not been able to synergize. That is the truth. To the extent that a former Inspector General of Police had to sue the Police Service Commission, took them to court. Like we rightly observed, the issue of recruitment. Who and what was recruitment? Which rank? It was police constables. That is the lowest cadre. Over the years, it's the police that does that. It's not the Police Service Commission that does it. But somehow people became very interested. I know the way things are done in Nigeria. Why do you want to get involved? So that you can accommodate your people, meet pressures for employment from here and there, and all of that. But let me correct one impression too. There's absolutely nothing wrong in having a Minister of Police Affairs. Nothing wrong. Minister of Police Affairs can be there. The Police Service Commission is there, and it's established under the Nigerian Constitution. They take care of disciplinary matters for officers. They're also involved in deployment of senior officers, commissioner of police, and all of that. But they have to synergize with the Nigerian Police Force. And that is the root cause of this challenge we're having now. Because like we normally say, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Most of these challenges will have been overcome if they've been coming together, discussing them, analyzing them, making representations to the federal government, and being on one page. It becomes a lot easier to overcome. And one other problem we've also had too is that over time, we've had people who have little or no experience with policing heading the Ministry of Police Affairs. You recall during Obasanjo's era, a former prison officer, a retired prison officer, he's late now, was Minister of Police Affairs. Retired military officers have come to head Minister of Police Affairs. But when you go to the military, Minister of Defense, have you ever seen a civilian be deployed as appointed as a Minister of Defense? No. Most of them over time have been retired military officers who know the terrain so well that to a great extent will provide solution. Some people might want to say, but the chairman of the Police Service Commission over time have been retired Inspector General Police and Deputy Inspector General Police. Why were they still having issues with the Inspector General Police? That is an issue that has to do maybe with gross indiscipline. Because in our days, how can an Inspector General Police serving sue somebody who's the chairman of the Police Service Commission, a retired IG? What was his rank when that man's chairman was Inspector General Police? So my honest advice is that the police needs to put its house in order. Needs to put its house in order. The police trust fund you made reference to was established to raise funds here and there to complement the efforts of the police in providing infrastructure, purchase of vehicles, building barracks maybe, renovating barracks, and things like that. But to a very large extent, not much of that has been achieved. Maybe because the just committees were created not too long ago. But somebody told me some weeks back that some contracts have been awarded by the Police Trust Fund to do certain things here and there. I don't know what jobs they are. But the bottom line is that there's absolutely nothing wrong in having the Police Service Commission, the Ministry of Police Affairs. The problem there is this lack of synergy I talked about. Everybody seems to be independent. It shouldn't be so. They should come together, work together in the interest of the Nigerian Police Force, in the interest of the policeman, in the interest of the police officers. With that, a lot of these problems will be overcome. But like I told you, you recall that in our days, what was doing the police at that time? The funds were enough to go around, but right now, the figure has risen to close to 400,000. And the budgetary allocation is not anywhere near what can accommodate or take care of all their needs. If you extrapolate that to take it to some other sectors of the economy, take the power supply, for instance. When I was in Lagos, serving in Lagos, I was living in a 3-bedroom flat in Ikoyi. From 1980, when I got posted from Enugu to Lagos, till 1994, when I was transferred to Abuja. And we never used the generator in my house. And the light was always there. Anytime the light was to go off, they would inform us on TV or radio. Say, ladies and gentlemen, so sorry, there'll be power outage for so period, so period. If it's going to take them like 1.5 hours to get it fixed, they will tell you 3 whole hours. But we will get to those 3 hours before the light is restored. Now what do we have? Population has exploded. The demand for power has also gone so high. All of those demands cannot be met. It's the same thing that is playing around in the police force now.
And the Ikoyi you talked about, you
Yes.
can see it's now playing host to all kinds of high-rise structures.
Some of them collapsing.
Of course, unfortunately, with the infrastructure unable to cope. But, gentlemen, and I still want to stay with Felix Ogboado, but the question is pertinent for all others. We, of course, to anyone who is probably just new in the Nigerian environment, we shouldn't just create the impression that the Nigerian police have been so wantonly neglected over the years that nothing had happened either to boost their operational capacity or to improve on their welfare. I'm saying this against the backdrop of what we have seen a number of private organizations and also public institutions, more particularly state governments, what they have done over the years. State governments, like in Lagos, for instance, created the Lagos State Police Trust Fund. And then you also have supplementation to police officers in terms of vehicles, in terms of either allowances that we are talking about, to say, look, get this so that you can continue to operate, which is one of the arguments that some state chief executives have made in recent times in saying, look, we want to have a state police because, let's face it, we have been funding even the federal police in our various jurisdictions. But AIG Felix Ogboado, you raised some very pertinent issues, and this have to do, if you may, with the foundation of the management of the police force. There is something wrong with the structural foundation of the management of the police force. Why would it be that, as we speak, the Nigerian Army continues to have its Army Corps of Engineers? Why would it be that the police workshops, as we used to know, I mean, if you went around police commands, you could see where their workshops were, that the police workshops
they're no longer there.
Collapsed altogether. Now, when you say you are recruiting 10,000 additional policemen, how many of these technical hands are you recruiting to populate your workshops? How many of these dumps are you revitalizing? These issues that are critical to your operations. Not just a matter of just saying welfare, put money in my pocket, put money in my pocket. State governments buy Hilux buses, Hilux pickups, Hilux. But nobody talks about some of these critical aspects that would ensure that these Hilux trucks function appropriately and they get to be repaired. How do we overcome this critical challenge of the, if you like, managerial dysfunction that we have in the police force?
Thank you very much. I think it's... we may have to go back to the good old days. Those things that they used to do then, that are no longer in existence. Like the workshop we talked about. If the workshops were there, police vehicles would be maintained. And they'd be roadworthy at all times. Good enough, a lot of state governments are supporting the police force so much, financially and materially. Patrol vehicles are bought and donated to them. Even some companies also donate vehicles to them. And of course, that goes to show too that maybe the federal government has failed in its responsibility to provide some of these things, So back to the point you raised, the police needs to go back to those good things we used to have in those days. The works department. Every command must have a workshop that has all category of workers that can make vehicles roadworthy. When I see police officers on the highways asking for, demanding for vehicle particulars, where's your this, where's your that? They say, where's your certificate of roadworthiness? Yet their patrol vehicles are not in any way roadworthy, rotten. And you're asking somebody who is sure is roadworthy. So you see that they are morally incapacitated to be asking such questions. So the police needs to put its house in order. At my level, we'll have the Association of Retired Police Officers. We'll come together, think, wrap up something, and submit to them. Because we cannot continue like this. All of those good things which we do in the past that used to portray the police in good light need to be replaced. Then, of course, one major challenge the police facing too is that of training. Training. Police training institutions, painful and regrettably, are nothing to write home about. And we don't have committed officers to train these officers that are undergoing training. If a signal comes and somebody is Karen is posted, Karen, what did you do? Postings to police training schools are seen as punitive. But that shouldn't be so. You know, that's one thing I commend the military for. They don't compromise training. You recall when Obasanjo was president of this nation, his ADC had to let him go to attend some of those courses because without those courses can't get promoted. But in the police force, we've had people served as ADCs to some governors. Right from that time, they became ADCs up to the top, up to the villa. One of them is a DIG today. No police experience. That can never happen in the military. Because no matter who we are attached to, no matter where you are serving, you must follow the entire due process that will qualify you for promotion. And that's what will give you the experience.
Does it require the Federal Executive Council?
No, not at all.
Also say
no.
That's why we are saying
yes,
this.
that's what I'm saying, that the police needs to put this house in order.
Precisely.
These three agencies we talked about, then they come together. Look, we are facing a lot of challenges. What is the way forward? Put on your thinking caps.
You see,
and work out solutions.
That was the reason
for implementation.
I raised the issue of responsibility of Police Service Commission, Minister of Police Affairs, and police management itself. So if you have these agencies and they cannot synergize, then why do we have that? Why are they in existence in the first place? Most policemen now want to be attached to one honorable member,
yes,
or one minister or the other.
Or senator.
And meanwhile, sometimes you see the governors, those policemen being decorated, being promoted without even attending any training, as you rightly pointed out. Okay, we'll take a short break now. You know, when we come back, we'll continue with the conversation.
Everybody knows the secret to good cooking is that special ingredient. The mothers know it, but does this new generation know it? Let's find out. Mothers, daughters, are you ready? Yes! Let the cooking begin.
Erisco tomato paste. Now we get home, now we get love, now we get children.
With a spice the world, with a meal so great and so healthy.
You know we've got your back. Oh, with Erisco, Ridico, Nagico.
Ladies and gentlemen, food is ready.
Food of love. Tomato paste. Good food for the body. Yum yum for the body.
Erisco Richico and Nagico tomato paste is made by Erisco Foods Limited, feeding Africans with healthy foods.
I'm the Chief Resident Engineer and Project Supervisor of the Second Niger Bridge Project. The Second Niger Bridge Project is a project that has been conceived for a very long time, but it has finally come to life during this present administration. This project has a lot of socio-economic benefits, and it has impacted positively on the lives of the host communities, both in Anambra State and Delta State. The people are very happy. The host communities, they partnered with us because apart from the social benefits, indigenes are also employed on this project. We can see how their lives are being improved.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Since coming into office in 2015, the Buhari administration has recorded unprecedented achievements in all sectors, especially in the provision of infrastructure, which is the key to economic growth. Never in the history of this country has any other administration done so much with so little. Recall that when this administration came into office, the price of crude oil, which provides for 80% of Nigeria's budgetary revenues and 95% of foreign exchange earning, dropped drastically, thus reducing the amount of resources available to the federal government. In spite of this, the administration has continued apace with massive infrastructure developments.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, thank you for staying with us up to this moment. Let's return to you again, Okechukwu Nwangoma. I really hope your line allowed you to listen to Felix Obwaudu's last comment based on the question posed by my colleague Kinsley, which has to do with certain intricacies of police management. Obwaudu said that in those days, the police used to have workshops. Also have regular trainings, which is a prerequisite for promotion. But these days, it is no longer like that. And one of the questions I posed earlier on has to do with the responsibility of Minister of Police Affairs and Police Services Commission, and of course the real police management. There's lack of synergy, according to Obwaudu, which resulted in some, crisis, between these agencies. Now, what is your take on this? Plus, of course, you've told us earlier on that the police is not well remunerated, which everybody appreciates. Now we are looking at the police itself, how police manages itself, and what injury is police giving to itself in terms of management.
Well, you know that there are different layers of police. We call them external oversight, mechanisms. Beyond the Ministry of Police Affairs and the Police Service Commission, you also have the Police Council, which is headed by the President. The President is the chairman of the Police Council, which includes the governors of all the states, and then with the Inspector General of Police and the chairman of the Police Service Commission. The role of that council is basically policy, advisory. They advise the president on how to address insecurity and on the appointment of the IGP when there is a vacancy. Now, the police service, the Ministry of Police Affairs is another layer. Of course, you know that it was just 2 years ago that it was returned. Police was brought under the Ministry of Interior because of the argument that there's need to cut down, on governance and reduce the number of ministries. But later it was brought back. If you look at the functions of the Police Council and the functions of the Ministry of Police Affairs, there seems to be some convergence, But the Police Service Commission has its job cut out for it. It's a constitutional, it's a constitutional body with a mandate to recruit, discipline, and promote, and also make policies for the police. But I think that the challenge that the Police Service Commission has is that of funding, and the fact that even though it is vised under the law as an external civilian oversight agency for the police, successive presidents prefer to appoint retired IGPs to be chairman of Police Service Commission, and that affects its ability to operate independently. And with all this conflict between the PSC and the Inspector General of Police over who has powers to conduct recruitments, So all these challenges seem to, distract them from really performing the duties they ought to do. Basically, the duty of the Minister of Police Affairs is to, handle police budgets, Of course. So, but I think that one key thing that is missing with regards to the police council, for example, is that the police council has never really met, even though it is required to meet periodically to advise the president on how to address insecurity. And if there's any time that the council needs to meet, it is this time of growing insecurity because governors are members of the council. And so they have a platform where they can meet with the president and other members of the council to, come up with, measures to effectively tackle insecurity in this country, and to also advise the president on the modalities for the appointment of an IGP. You see, every now and then, that function is abandoned to the president rather than, the council as a whole. So I think that we need to begin to look at the various functions of these various organs to see where they conflict with each other and try to harmonize them. That way, it will help to streamline things and make things work efficiently.
Okay, Chukwu, thank you very much for the points that you have raised. I just would like to raise this other point with retired AIG Felix Ogbaldu. In terms of perhaps the police, if you may, losing its institutional memory from time to time, there have been concerns, for instance, as to how the IG gets to be appointed. In most cases, as we have seen in recent decade, once an AIG gets to the rank of a DIG and it doesn't become then the IG, chances are that the president in tapping the nominee to become IG will often result in the deck being cleared. If you are a DIG, that's the terminus for your position, and those who, of course, who are AIGs and are senior to the new IG also get to be retired prematurely. And some persons have argued that sometimes this part of the institutional memory we are talking about also goes with the exit of those persons, and it's a recurrent thing. Is there a sense in which this might be corrected if it is possible under the political environment?
Oh, sure. Thank you very much for that question. We've raised this issue over time, and we had an incident where an AIG was appointed IG, and he pleaded with the authorities and those officers who were DIGs, who were his superiors before, his seniors before, to stay back. And they did. But the issue of bringing an AIG and making him an IG and retiring all of those who were senior to him before, there's a lot of wastage of manpower resources. Then, having said that, what I observed is that that is an indication that there has been a lot of flaws in the promotion process. Because if you have DIGs up there, they're not due for retirement, why will you go below them to pick an AIG and make him their boss and say, all of you get out, retire? It's not the best. So the succession process has to be rejigged again. If an IG is retiring, we should make sure a DIG succeeds him. Because to bring an AIG who is junior to all of them, to be over and above them, for you to sweep them away, it's not the best. It's not the best. These are the political considerations and interventions that are compounding some of the problems in the police force. external forces. Oh, where's the AIG from? Where's one going from? Where is the successor going to come from? And things like that. But as far as I'm concerned, it's performance, competence that should be key. These should be the foremost considerations in appointing an IG. I know it's the police council that does that. So, and I do hope that some of their members are listening to us here today. They need to rectify, correct all of these anomalies. I can't remember who the IG was at that time. Close to 6, 7 senior officers who were senior to him were all swept off, were retired. And the good number were complaining, and that wasn't the best for the service. We lost quality manpower. So it's something that needs to be rectified. Something that needs to be rectified. Let this thing be strictly based on seniority. First, then, like I said, competence, ability to perform, and not political sentiments or considerations.
Well, of course, there's this thinking that for you to be an IG, of course, is a political appointment. Perhaps that may be reason why some presidents try to pick an AIG as against an DG, DIG rather, to become the IG of police. Well, I think you've raised you've made a very good point there that it's better to pick from those who are closer to that high rank.
Yes.
So before, to avoid
wastage and manpower.
Exactly. Now, let's return to Commander Remu. Commander Remu, a number of issues have been raised here, and you didn't, you weren't able to make your own points with respect to the responsibilities of the Public Police Services Commission, Ministry of Police Affairs, the synergy that is lacking. We also raised the issue of training for policemen, returning to the good old days of having workshops so that police could have people with skills that could also maintain some of the equipment or vehicles that they use in operation.
Well, Kieran, I think my other two colleagues have said it all. I agree with Mr. Felix that it's important to emphasize competence as well as seniority in putting leadership in place within the police force. But whatever the outcome, what is important is that we need leadership. I think you referred to Police Trust Fund, which was established in Lagos. It was also an activist leadership that put that in place, that initiated that. I could recollect, I'm not sure, during the time of MD Abubakar. And I think you also have Adamu Mohammed also initiated this community policy. What I'm trying to say here is that Nigerian police force needs activist leadership who will be able to take the risk for renewal of the police force and above all for the welfare of the police rank and file. And I think it's important that the police have to put their house in order. I've said so. The President said increase the number of police men and women through recruitment. It is not the president that will come there to come and do the recruitment. But you know the story. The Police Service Commission and the IG, they've been in court. I think you need leadership for police that will be able to say, no, it can't be business as usual. We should reposition the police, as the case may be. And I think it's doable. And my suggestion would be that whoever will lead the police, in addition to that point that Felix raised, Mr. Felix raised, seniority as well as competence, we must have the vision. What is the vision of the IG, of an IG? You must have a kind of four-year plan. What will be your concern for the welfare of your members? What will be your concern for training? I think I'm directed police force. We should leave that one to the colonial era and to the era of military rule, which we have left behind now. We have to know that we're in a democracy in which every institution must assert its independence to get things done. And on the last note, the last word I want to raise about issue of welfare is that there are institutions that are in place to help us to address this. National Salary, Income and Wages Commission is there. Let the personnel department of police take advantage of those institutions to constantly, regularly, make cases for improvement in the welfare of the police. With respect to all the allowances, you don't need, as Kisley has said, we don't need dramatized Federal Executive Council to do that. There are institutions. Then, of course, my own institute is also here, a Labour Institute for Labour Studies. We also conduct training on motivation, on productivity. I think police should take advantage of that. It's important because it's not divisible. The whole workers are workers, whether they are in uniform or they are in beautiful clothes like Kirin and Kisling. They are workers. All they need is welfare. Somebody has to negotiate for them. Somebody has to discuss for them. And the Michael Imodu Labour Institute is a platform for that. So I think they should take advantage of that in a way that we discuss very well. But I'm impressed about the way Mr. Felix has spoken. But I would be more excited that a current IG can talk that way. That you cannot ask us to park our cars when your own vehicle, your police vehicle, also doesn't have proper particulars. They are also not roadworthy. In that case, we should lead by example so that we get the job done. So it's not that we talk after we left service, but those who are currently there should take a risk to refix the police force. But I'm happy that we are discussing it, and I want to thank the NTA. We need to mainstream this discussion more. Because at times we complain police are not doing fine, but what people are forgetting, police are being killed daily. A good number of them are being killed. They are not protected. Death benefits are owed to them. I think it's time to really bring the police, the men and women who are guiding us to public discussion like this. And the only way out of it, I think it has started now 20% increase in salaries, increase in some duty to allowances and co. But this should not be a flash. It should be a systemic thing that we carry out all the time until we get there when we have highly motivated police force that can protect all of us.
Well, Comrade Remo, thank you very much there for the viewpoints that you have raised. Of course, we get pressed for time, and as you gentlemen have raised a number of perspectives, you find that other branches are also coming up. I just want to throw this in, not to reopen the conversation, because again, as I said, time is not on our side. What are the issues in police welfare, for instance? One would imagine not just the salaries and allowances, accommodation is critical.
Yes.
Health is critical. Mm-hmm. Education for themselves and for their children and wards. Those are critical things.
Insurance.
Insurance, of course. And then Issa Remo said a while ago, and this is something that we know, policemen who are on duty do get injured, and unfortunately some of them get killed in the line of duty. There is virtually no place you will go to in Nigeria today, no state, where you don't have a military-based hospital. Sometimes you have an Air Force hospital that is nearby. If it is a seaside, you also have the Naval Hospital. I know that there are medical doctors in the police, but where do you have the police, if you like, based hospitals? Around the country.
It's a clinic.
They say clinic, but where do you have the base? I mean, military base, if you go to Benin, for instance, it's on Airport Road. If you go to Lagos, you'll find it on Awolowo Way in Ikoyi, or Awolowo Road in Ikoyi, and elsewhere. So where do you have those facilities so that if a policeman is injured, are you going to take him to a private clinic where they will also be require you to give a police report before they treat a police officer who is injured?
With all the payments too.
With all the payment. All right.
Let me just make a few points on that.
Yes.
Like I told you, we have the police medical department. We have the foremost police hospital in Falamo in Lagos, in Ikoyi. The officers may say in Garki area 11 was converted to Muhammad Buhari Police Hospital by the immediate past IG or so. But beyond this, these two, what we have clinics here and there.
Yes.
Just clinics.
All right, sir.
We have doctors that
we run out of time, sir.
Managing them with nurses.
We run out of time. We'd like to thank you. for being here this morning. Barrister Felix Obaudu, retired Assistant Inspector General of Police. Thank you for your insights this morning.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Aremu, Director General, Michael Imodu, National Institute for Labor Studies, Ilorin, Kwara State. We appreciate you this morning for being part of our conversation. Okechukwu Nwangoma, Executive Director, Rule of Law and Accountability Advocacy Center, RULAC. We would also like to thank you for your contribution this morning.
All right, so that's it on Good Morning Nigeria. Deep thanks for your being our guests. Join us tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Take care of yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.